You're watching TV Cogeco, truly local television.
Hi, this is Pay Yourself First, TV Cogeco show about your financial success. I'm your host, Jamie Krane. Thanks very much for joining us this week. Well, if you watched us last week, you saw that we had Fareen Samji here from the Pythons Pit. And we're going to be having all the individual Pythons here to have an interview so we can find out all about them, what makes them tick, and what their expectations are of this Pythons Pit program. So we have our first guest is here with us today. Don't go away. It's going to be a great show. And we're back. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching Pay Yourself First, TV Cogeco show about your financial success. My name is Jamie Krane, and we have in the studio with us today George Minakakis. George, welcome.
Thank you.
George is the first Python that we're having the opportunity to interview for the upcoming Pythons Pit. That's a program sponsored by Rotary here in Halton Region and the DeGroote School of Business. And Pythons Pit, you can go to pythonspit.com.ca, I think, and you can take a look and get a little bit more information. But essentially, it's along the lines of a Dragon's Den or a Shark Tank scenario where local entrepreneurs have an opportunity to present their products to investors and to mentors who can help them bring it to fruition. And so, George, welcome very much. Welcome very much. Welcome to our show. Thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
I'm combining both phrases all in one right there. It's my new thing. First of all, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved with the Pythons Pit. So you live here in Halton Region, or here actually in Milton, right?
Right.
And how did you first find out about the whole Pythons angle?
Well, it's an interesting story because I got a call from my financial advisor's assistant. Said, George, I saw this in the newspaper and I wanted to tell you about it. So I started looking into it. I said, thanks, Helen, great. I'll look into it a little deeper. Then the next day I got a call from a very good friend of mine who said, hey, George, you've got to look at this. It's great. It's just for you. And I thought, I don't even know anything about Dragon's Den, to be honest. I think I've seen the show once. And I'm sure Kevin O'Leary won't like that.
We'll edit that out later.
And I made a call to Fareen, and we connected, and she said, we'd like to have you on board. And I thought that was great. Got to meet her and a few of the other people and signed up.
That's fantastic. Well, give us a little bit about your background, because obviously the only people that they're inviting to be Pythons in this are people who have been successful through their careers and have made a name for themselves and certainly have something to bring to the table. So give us a little bit about your background. Well,
the truth to be said is I'm the only non-business owner of the group at this stage. My background has been corporate for the last 25 years, and having worked for Pepsi and a company called Luxottica, that owns LensCrafters, Pearl Vision, Sunglass Hut.
We all know those, sure.
You all know all those brands. And they manufacture Versace, Armani, and they own Ray-Ban and Oakley.
Oh, so they actually manufacture them as well?
They manufacture eyewear as well, yes.
Oh, okay, so not just resellers.
Right.
And how many stores do they have throughout the world?
There are 7,000 optical stores that they own throughout the world and sell to over 200,000 wholesale doors.
Wow.
It's significant business.
That's a lot. Are they the biggest players in that industry?
They are the largest player in the industry.
Okay, wow. So now your experience with them, how did you start out with them?
I worked for PepsiCo, and the company was restructuring, and I said, it's been fun, and rather than become a victim in some of these things, I decided to take ownership of your own career. I ended up at Luxottica. They hired me on to take over the Canadian operations, ended up taking over Canada, and it was only LensCrafters at the time. The company continued to make acquisitions, and it plumed into to Pearl Vision and Sunglass Hut, and they own Sears Optical as well, and now they're going to be involved with Target Optical. But at the end of the day, what happened was my career kept growing over a 17-year period. I got promoted every 18 to 24 months to different levels, and found myself in 2006 as the chief executive officer for LensCrafters in China and Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
We opened up 250 stores out there, and then returned back in 2009. Co-general managed Pearl Vision North America, and then they asked me to come back to Canada and take over the Canadian business once more. And after that, at the end of 2011, I decided that I was going to retire. 17 years is a long time.
Well, you're just a young guy. You're like, what, 40?
I wish, yeah. Sounds good.
Really? But that's fantastic. I mean, I'm sure that that's many of our viewers' dream, is that to be able to have the opportunity to retire and do something that's a little more in tune with your your beliefs and where your heart guides you rather than being in the corporate world and still being young enough to be able to get out there and do it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So congratulations, that's
Thank you.
fantastic. So you sound like you're the true embodiment of what they're looking for in a Python.
Yeah.
Now, I was reading a little bit, doing a bit of research, georgeminakakis.com on the internet,
Right.
and you've started writing a little bit recently, and you've published some significant articles on sort of your belief system on how organizations and retail organizations specifically can be successful. And I found that there was some pretty interesting information in there. You mentioned that you were from a family of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe expand on that a little bit.
Well, prior to Pepsi, my dad owned a group of restaurants. And so I ended up being, the dishwasher, right? The cheap dishwasher, bottle cleaner, you name it, I did all those things. And then while I was in school, I ended up owning, with my dad, 3 pizza places. So we got out of that business. I found myself in a personnel agency for about 1.5 years with someone that I knew. Didn't work out well. Sometimes business relationships don't work out well.
Partnerships are tough.
They are tough. And I got out of that. And then I was drawn into PepsiCo. And then from there on, I just went in. But I fell in love with business very early on, just watching my dad work and owning a business. And
well, as you know, we had this discussion beforehand, but we were in the franchise end of the restaurant business for a long time as well. And it's really demanding. It just sucks your time out. And
it does.
You're married to that business. And especially when 60% of your staff are, high school kids or whatever, you end up doing a lot of babysitting. That may or may not be the right term, but we always said, we have 30 kids now instead of 1. And you just have a lot of needs, And, okay, and then one of the things I found interesting in how you bill yourself now is a change agent. Where did that come about? And maybe explain that a little bit.
Well, I have to thank my PR agent for that one. She was looking for a word to define me, and when she sized up my career, she basically said, you are a real change agent. Because going into different countries and launching a brand or taking a brand that's struggling and rebuilding it, you have to be a change agent to make those things happen. So in a sense, I'm bringing that to the table to Python's Pit, because these entrepreneurs are change agents themselves. If they're building a new model that's going to be disruptive in the marketplace, they're going to need someone like me to help them through that change.
Right, and we mentioned this before. You mentioned this in the green room earlier as well, is something that's going to be disruptive in the marketplace. Expand on that a little bit, because I think that you hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, and you talked about Target, and I want to talk about Target in a minute as well. But we've got different factors that are now coming into the retail marketplace, and if somebody wants to be competitive, they kind of need to stay ahead of the curve. So I love that term, disruptive. So maybe expand on that a little bit.
Well, my pet peeve is the shoe business, and hopefully there's nobody watching that's going to get angry with me. But it's a tough business to begin with. So, if someone was going to show up at Python's Pit and pitch another shoe company selling shoes, my question and challenge is going to be, how is this going to be different than every other shoe store? What's going to draw customers? How are you going to make it unique that everybody wants to beat a path to your door and buy shoes from you? And that's the part that disruptive means. It means changing the paradigm of what you're doing, what's being done today, and that you're going to do it in so much of a different way that consumers are going to go, you know what, that sounds a lot easier, and it's fundamentally a better way to shop. It's going to happen, and it is happening in a lot of industries today, and you'll see online businesses grow, but at the same time, they're only a web page in a lot of cases these days, right? Very few retailers are drawing their largest part of their revenue off of online business. They haven't done it yet.
Where do you see that going in the future, though? Because that's what we hear today. If you don't have a presence online, you're not going anyplace. Is that really the case, or do people still want to have that, in your opinion, that touchy feeling? Well, again, maybe it's not really a fair question, because coming from your background, you're not going to buy eyeglasses over the internet. You're
You'd be
not.
surprised.
Is it really? Are
Yes.
people doing it? Because you want to put them on. You try on 500 pairs, you go, okay, finally I found one that suits my face.
You'd be surprised. There is a operation out of British Columbia called Clearly Contacts, and it's growing amazingly, and consumers are buying not just contact lenses, but eyewear online.
So, okay, here's a genius. I just thought of this just now. What we need to be able to do is put a picture of yourself on the screen and choose their frames and just superimpose their frame on your face until you see one you like.
And that's what they've done.
Have they done that, really?
That's what they've done.
So it's not original.
We're ahead of you.
I don't want to say I'm always too late, but occasionally I'm a little bit too late. For
But
that.
I think disruptive models, what they're going to do is challenge the paradigm of what retail's like today. So you're seeing Best Buy become a showroom for Amazon. That's the whole argument that's taking place today, and the struggles that Best Buy itself as a brand has been having. But I think a lot of retailers are going to be faced with the same paradigm. And I don't think you're going to see retail stores go away and then online just take over, but I think you're going to see less stores from a retailer, over time, because the cost
overhead's-
of operating is
overhead's
significant.
huge, right? Yeah. And whereas online, you can reach so many people just through the click of a mouse, and it's just a matter of getting that out
Yeah,
there.
and because of lease obligations, you can be, a retailer can own 10 to 30% of their stores could be losing money.
Right.
So I think when those lease obligations have ceased, the online venue makes a lot more sense to continue to grow your business from it.
Right. And I guess a lot of that is we need to have those stores there because that helps build the image, but even though they may be losing money, that's okay because we're making money over here.
Well, and a lot of them, though, the challenge for that, though, is that at the same time, you've got those 10, 30% of stores that are losing money, and you're cutting costs at the service level,
Okay.
right? So it's hard to, where do you end, where do you stop?
Right.
Right? The answer is unload those underperforming stores, put money back into service, get a great online model that actually is more virtual versus just a web page. Because I think it's something, my numbers are staggering, like 80% of consumers who get on a web page never get past the first page.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
Although that may be changing over time.
Once it becomes more interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George, we're going to take a quick break and go to a commercial. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go away. It's a great show. You're watching Pay Yourself First, TV Cogeco show about your financial success. We'll be right back.
Body break.
If you're thinking about buying a piece of fitness equipment, here are 3 machines that have their own unique benefits to help you get results.
This piece of equipment closely mimics walking or running without the impact. Take advantage of the many programs as well as the forward and backward pedaling action for a great fat-burning workout. The upright bike simulates the feel of an actual bike ride and can give you the opportunity to work out at a low to high intensity. Sit upright with minimal lean, choose a program, and monitor your heart rate. If you're overweight, have joint or back pain, the recumbent bike is definitely the bike for you because of its safety and comfort features.
Well, whatever machine you decide on, when you exercise, listen to some music, watch some TV, or put your machine in front of a window that'll help keep you motivated and moving. Well, until next time, keep fit and have fun.
Body break.
Body break.
And we're back. Thanks very much for staying with us. We are interviewing today George Minakakis, and he is one of the Pythons in the upcoming Pythons pit that's being put on by the DeGroote School of Business and your local Rotarian Club here in Halton Region. And they have 6 Pythons altogether, and we will be interviewing each of them as we go through the course of the next 6 episodes here in the show, trying to find out what makes them tick and what their thoughts are of this whole Pythons pit thing, because I personally think it's a great idea. So, George, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking with us through the commercial break. 'Cause
Pleasure.
odd times, sometimes guests are gone during the commercial break, and we have a whole other 14 minutes trying to figure out what we're going to do. I've noticed when I did some research on yourself, and of course I encourage all of our viewers to go online and take a look. It's at georgeminakakis.com. We'll get that up on the screen in a few minutes. But you've been writing some interesting articles on how retailers really need to sort of change their whole thought process. And there's the whole common denominator seems to be coming back to this phrase that I've heard before, although I never really put it into a thought process the way it is now, but it's corporate social responsibility. So if you don't mind, maybe explain that to us and really what that means to you and what that should mean to the business owners that are watching the show.
Sure. Well, over the last 2 decades, we've probably seen and read about a lot of companies that have harmed the environment, harmed economies, have harmed the public. So corporate social responsibility really means that companies doing the right things by consumers, by employees, and the stakeholders that they work with, and just keeping that alignment. But at the same time, it's aligning your stakeholders with your values of your organization, aligning with your employees, and getting everybody focused on what's important to your business, your own brand. But a lot of companies, and retailers especially, they need to move forward and move closer to corporate social responsibility. I think the recent incident in Bangladesh, that affected a number of retailers because of the burning down of a plant and a number of people passed away. That speaks to corporate social responsibility in terms of who you align yourself with, and are you doing the right things or trying to do the right things that affect your business. And there's risks to it, and so it's also about managing risk, because when you're a corporate socially responsible organization, they're looking at enterprise risk management and saying, okay, what are those risks out there that we need to take care of, and how are we going to be socially responsible to address them? And let the consumers know that, let our stakeholders know what we're doing, and our employees, more importantly, internally, because you have talent inside your organization, you want to retain them. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to give them a sense of purpose, and that purpose comes from those social values that you create inside the organization.
Right.
And then once that starts, it's great. But you also have the other risk, which is also refer to as personal social responsibility, and that speaks to the leadership.
It starts at the top, right?
It does, and you can have an organization that means well, but you can have a leader that's not aligned. And their personal social responsibility becomes equally important to drive that corporate social aspect of it. And if the two aren't aligned, you can have all the great values in place, but they don't work.
Right.
You know, they just don't hold water.
Well, like you said, it starts at the top, and they really, starting with the chief executive on down, needs to set the example and prove to our staff that we have that corporate social responsibility. I have that personal social responsibility, and I need you to have it too.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you wrote a couple of other articles. I didn't write down the titles on here, but it was talking about how businesses stay relevant, and if you're relevant, you won't be here for very long.
Sure.
So maybe expand on that a little bit for us.
Again, it speaks to leadership. You know, my argument has always been that, and the articles, the book itself is referred to as The Last Retailer Standing.
Sorry, we didn't touch on that.
Yeah.
So you have a book coming out in February, right?
In January.
In January, okay.
So it's
The
called Last Retailer Standing. It's a controversial title, and my PRH loves it because it's pretty direct. And the subtitle is Relevant Leadership, Relevant Brand. And really the book speaks to longevity of companies, and particularly in retailers. But you don't have to be a retailer to read this book. You can be in any industry. It doesn't matter. But relevant leadership speaks to doing all the right things to run a company that's going to last, as opposed to the number of organizations that fail. I'll give you an example. There's a company, a hotel in Japan, that's over 1,200 years old. Now, when I say that to people, they go, how can that be? It's cultural, and it's been passed down from generation to generation. And it's the culture itself that's actually been at the core of keeping its longevity. There's a restaurant inside an abbey in Austria that's over 800 years old. Now, I'm not sure if the menu's the same.
Mutton, get your mutton
Yeah,
here.
exactly. But the idea that something has lasted that long is amazing.
That is phenomenal.
How many retailers are over 50 years old? The only one that I know of is Walmart.
Yeah, or maybe Hudson's Bay.
And maybe on Hudson's Bay, but
Yeah.
beyond that, there are very, very few. So they come and go. So the impetus behind the book was really to write about what it's going to take to get to that relevant leadership side to create a relevant brand. And luxury brand's a great example of how they survive, because it's the founders' own values that are imprinted on the brand, and consumers actually get aligned with that. And they follow those brands. They're committed. Luxury consumers are committed to it.
People can be very brand loyal.
Absolutely.
And I never really realized that so much until we had kids.
Yeah.
And we had to see. But it makes sense. It's how it's promoted to them, first of all, that brings it to the forefront, makes them interested in them. And it's I guess I would call it the corporate culture that keeps them there.
Yes.
So I guess that's right along with corporate social responsibility.
They tied together, and so that's what I've done in the book, is tied everything together in terms of great strategies, tied to culture, tied to the right leadership, tied to the right level of implementation of the right strategies. So
Right.
it just flows.
Man, I'd love to have you on my team. I don't know. Now, we sort of talked about that briefly at the beginning, so you're moving into sort of a consulting stage, right?
You know, yes and no. I'm stumbling onto that by accident because I'm getting calls from small businesses, couple of small chains, and young executives who are looking for someone to mentor them. So I've been doing that quite by accident. My goal has not been to become the consultant, but that's what's been happening.
There might be a time when Canadian Tire calls you and says, hey, we need, maybe the DeGroot family's watching this show, and we need George to come in and work with us. No, we talked a little bit before about Target. And now in Milton, we love Target because Target's built a big warehouse here, first of all, and they're providing jobs and helping to stimulate the economy. And of course, we're getting one of the first Targets here. Zellers is being turned into Target. But in much of the marketplace, they're being perceived as a real threat to what we see today. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about why we need to be concerned and what the local people can do to help protect themselves from this big bad Target that's coming to town.
Well, I mean, I guess you could perceive it as a big bad wolf coming in. But what it really is doing is bringing modern day retailing to Canada. It's pushing the envelope beyond where Walmart took us. It's pushing the envelope a little bit further. So now you have two dynamic companies, Walmart and Target, who are going to be shaping the retail industry for us. And they're very sophisticated models.
They know what they're doing.
Absolutely, and they know their customer base. I mean, how many retailers can come into Canada and say that they already have a market awareness of something like 20 to 25% coming in?
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, and
Everybody knows Target. I mean, first of all, we're subjected to that through advertising through the U.S.
and cross-border shopping
Well,
is a
but
huge.
cross-border shopping, sure. Every time we go to the States, I mean, I've been in Target, I've shopped in Target, I like it.
Yep.
Because there's stuff there you just don't see anywhere else. And I
Right.
think you sort of classified that as, I'm sorry, I don't remember the way
Cheap
you-
and chic.
Yeah, cheap and chic, the CNC
Yeah.
model, right? I
Yeah.
love that.
And what's happening is you're going to have a lot of other retail, department store retailers and independent retailers out there who are going to struggle with this because the market pie is not any bigger. Target's not bringing more customers with them.
Right.
They're going to take customers from someone.
Yes.
So the challenge for the chains, the larger department stores and the independents is, what are you going to do differently that's going to make you unique and allow you to retain your customers? And customer retention is going to be a big challenge.
Well, what are your thoughts then on these retail outlet stores? Like they're building one right at Trafalgar in the 401. What are your thoughts on that then? Because that's the big retailers trying to get the big expensive high-end retailers, you know, Coach and companies like that, trying to get their product to the average person. So that's maybe kind of a way of thinking outside the box, right?
Well, when you consider that Milton, for example, has the highest average incomes in Canada of around $129,000, it's a great venue for them.
Right.
It's a great target. Now, you're not going to find these type of operations everywhere across Canada. They're going to be very unique.
And very specific in where they
Very
park them.
specific target. This is a very wealthy town, and it's grown to that level, and I think they're going to do fairly well. Now, who the tenants are going to be, I don't know, but they're going to have to be mid-tier and higher in order to attract the right customer level.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting when it comes in, that's for
Yeah.
sure. You have to really see how it's going to pan
Absolutely.
out. And how it's going to affect, you know, the average Joe retailer down here in Milton. I mean, you know, we've really seen the shift from, you know, small mom and pop operations to a lot of the big box stores. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Although, you know, there's something to be said for those hands-on operations because you're going to get customer service better at a place like Spokes and Slopes here in Milton than you may get at one of the big box stores because Matt Berger knows what he's talking about. And he knows you, and he's going to take you and he's going to personalize your experience right to what you need. And so we're going to have him on the show too. So Matt, if you're watching, get ready. So let's talk about Python's Pit because I love the concept. As you know, we talked before the show, that's sort of where I come from. That's my background. And I love that whole concept of helping people take an idea and blossom. So I think for you, it's going to be must be very fulfilling. Well, you won't know yet, I'm sure, but that must be one of the reasons why you went for this.
Well, that's exactly why I did it. You know, you're successful in your career, and your roots are from that genre, and so you'd say to yourself, you know, this is, you know, what else can you do? So it's a great fit. But I have to tell you, recently we were holding a large snake for a photo shoot, and all 6 of us were hanging on. Now, I have to admit, some of my colleagues were not touching the snake. You know, so I know who they are, and they know who they. I was holding the head.
Okay.
Because I did read once, if you hold the head, you've got a better shot of surviving.
Smart.
So, yeah, we were holding this large snake, and so for a photo shoot. But you know what, there's 6 of us, very dynamic, very successful people who have an interest, and it's going to be a very interesting venue because, you know, we may be outbidding each other for an opportunity,
idea.
or we may join forces and go together on something big.
Now, what do you think, I mean, I know you've got a lot of talent, but what do you think you're going to be able to bring to the table specifically for one of these pitchers?
Well, I'm a strategist by nature, and education. So what I'm bringing to the table is, you know, help you get your business aligned, so making sure you get targeting the right customer, you got all the right resources, and to keep your feet on the ground.
Planning.
Make sure that you're following every step of the way what the plan calls for, and not straying away from it. Because a lot of businesses fail within the first 18 months.
Right.
And I'm putting up money, so I don't want to lose my money.
I don't blame you. And you are putting up your own cash for this,
Absolutely.
right? This isn't some on-paper Python's Pit thing. This is the real
Absolutely.
deal, right?
Minimum is 25,000 up to 100,000 or more.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. I mean, you know what? I think it's exciting because right now you've got some flexibility in your schedule, and this may take you in who knows what direction.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, there are 2 categories. There's high school students, and there are what they call an open category,
Right.
I guess. What are your thoughts regarding, you know, who would be your favorite to work with? I mean, obviously, I don't know if that's really a fair question or
Yeah.
not. Because it'd be neat to work with students because they haven't been polluted yet with a lot of the negativity that comes
like that
from,
word.
from people, you know, once you've been out in the workforce and
Yeah.
you just hit negativity all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of kids come into this just totally green and they're just wide open. And for me, and that's sort of why I'm throwing it out there, I'd love to work with, we were involved with junior achievement and things like that, but I love the way the kids' minds work before they're corrupted by all the nonsense that we get day to day. So.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's not really a fair question.
Well, but you know what it brings to the forefront is who is that, you know, are you going to hear someone talk about the next Lululemon or the next Apple or the next Microsoft? What's going to come to the table from those high school students and those independents that are coming in? Yeah. You know, that's the exciting part, because you don't know what's going to come in. And then McMaster students or MBA students are helping these people putting their plans together. So they're going to be a little more polished, you know, and buttoned down when they're coming in. So they'll be ready for me anyway.
Some quality stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, George, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show to get to know you a little bit more. I think our viewers know a little bit more about what makes you tick. And congratulations on your appointment to Python's Pit, and good luck with what comes down the pipe. I think it's really exciting.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Pay Yourself First, TV Cogeco show about your financial success. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
No. Mr. Humphrey, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights that you are trying to impose.
Mrs. Roosevelt and I only drafted the declaration. It will be up to you and your fellow delegates to adopt or reject.
But what you are proposing is that individual human rights should override a nation's legislation.
Well, that the state would no longer be above the law.
C'est absurde. It would compromise the very sovereignty of the Republic.
Yes, I believe it will.
Mr. President, in conclusion, I thank the court for allowing me to speak. I would like to reiterate that I believe my country's employment legislation discriminates against me because of my disability, and this violates the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Mr. President, our country's legislation was arrived at democratically. It is an expression of our
Say, isn't that the Canadian who actually wrote the Declaration of Human Rights?
And we're back. Thanks very much for staying with us. Well, okay, Python's Pit is going to be March 23rd at the DeGroote School of Business, the Ron Joyce Center in Burlington. And we can watch for George Minakakis on that show. It's going to be great. You can actually get tickets. Right now, as of our filming, ticket information is not available yet, but it won't be too expensive. They have extended the deadline. So if you're watching this show, depending on what date you're watching this, they have extended the deadline for applications until January 7th. So if you're thinking about getting an application in, you still have time to do it. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the next few episodes. We're going to be interviewing all the individual Pythons who are on the show. It's going to be fabulous. You're going to get to meet a lot of really successful people right here in the Halton region, and you never know, there might be network opportunities for you with them. So this has been Pay Yourself First, TV Cogeco show about your financial success. Thanks very much for watching. See you again next week.